Chapter 5: The Event Horizon of the Empress. The silence that descended upon the courtyard wasn't just a lack of noise, it was a physical weight. The ambient hum of the heavy refinery furnaces seemed to muffle, dropping several octaves, until it was nothing more than a distant, ghostly throb. The toxic rain, which had been lashing against the iron foundations of the base for hours, froze midair. Millions of dark, translucent water droplets hung suspended in the atmosphere like a field of static glass beads, defying the natural laws of gravity. Every single player in the courtyard, both the battle-hardened veterans of Wave 1 and the fresh, wide-eyed recruits of Wave 2, dropped their plasma torches and heavy wrenches. Guys," Trashcan's voice crackled quietly over the global chat, the usual frantic energy completely drained from his tone. "Is anyone else getting a major frame rate dip, or is the server literally breaking right now? Look at the sky." "It's not a lag spike," Goblin replied from his sniper perch, his avatar leaning over the stone parapet to get a better view. "Look at the particle effects on the suspended rain. The lighting engine is bending, literally bending." High above them, within the cold sanctuary of my void, I watched the structural data of the physical world warp around the point of manifestation. Creating a superblank of this magnitude within a universe fundamentally tied to the warp was like trying to submerge a massive sphere of absolute vacuum into a roaring ocean. The surrounding reality screamed in protest, but the raw emotional value harvested from the player's recent victory acted as the perfect anchor, forcing physical space to accept her presence. A tiny pinprick dot of absolute darkness appeared 10 feet above the refinery hopper. It wasn't a shadow, it was a hole in the universe. Slowly the pinprick expanded, drawing the surrounding suspended rain crystals toward it in a tight, swirling spiral. The light from the roaring furnaces stretched and distorted, pulled into the tiny vortex until the space around it looked like a cracked mirror. And then, from the center of that miniature event horizon, she stepped forward. Her physical form was an exercise in unsettling, monochromatic perfection. She appeared as a young woman clad in a structured, high-collared gown of matte black armor that seemed to absorb the light around it, making it difficult to discern her exact silhouette. Her hair was a stark, brilliant silver, contrasting violently with eyes that held no pupils, just two swirling, miniature voids of deep obsidian. But it wasn't her appearance that caused the players to take a collective step back. It was her aura. Because she was a superblank, she possessed a localized psychic dead zone of terrifying proportions. To the players, whose minds were connected to this world via my carefully shielded neural interface, the sensation didn't manifest as painful. Instead, it felt like an immense, awe-inspiring silence, a sudden clearing of the mental background noise they hadn't even realized they were carrying. To any warp-sensitive creature outside the walls, her birth would have felt like a sudden, localized lobotomy. She drifted downward, her boots making absolutely zero sound as they touched the grit of the concrete courtyard. The moment her feet made contact with the ground, the suspended rain exploded outward in a harmless circular shockwave, splashing against the walls. A massive gold-bordered system announcement flashed simultaneously across every player's heads-up display, accompanied by an ominous, deep orchestral swell that I played directly into their auditory cortex. Global event, arrival of the sovereign apex. Faction leader identified, the Empress of the Antrise Empire. Current status, awakening, 0.01% core stabilized. In the absence of light, the void shall construct an unyielding foundation. "Holy crap," Meltdown whispered, his industrial mech's hydraulic arms trembling slightly as he stared at the figure. "She's an NPC, she looks like a hidden raid boss. Look at her level. It just says error, null value." "That's not an NPC, dude, that's the main faction leader," Trashkin said, scrambling down from his cargo loader with a level of reverence he usually reserved for high-tier loot drops. "We actually unlocked the Empress. The lore drops were real." The Empress stood perfectly still, her obsidian eyes sweeping across the assembly of 50 hardcore gamers and 50 bewildered rookies. Though she was a creation of my own power, a greater demon of the void tailored to act as my physical proxy, she possessed her own distinct, cold intelligence. She looked upon the players not with the malice of a chaos entity, but with the dispassionate, calculating gaze of a supreme commander, analyzing a highly efficient pool of assets. She raised her right hand, her fingers slender and pale against the dark armor. With a subtle, deliberate tilt of her wrist, a localized gravitational anomaly bloomed 3 inches above her palm. A small sphere of compressed air flattened into a violent, spinning disk of kinetic force, humming with a terrifying pitch that rattled the loose scrap metal in the nearby hoppers. When she spoke, her voice didn't travel through the air. It resonated directly within the minds of everyone present, carrying the hollow, overlapping echo of a higher dimension. "You have cleared the perimeter of the initial rot," she declared, her tone entirely devoid of warmth, yet carrying a strange, magnetic authority that made the players stand straighter. "The blind worms of the old empire have been purged from the flats, but they are a symptom of a larger disease. This fortress is the first nail driven into the coffin of this dying sector. You have labored well, builders of Antris." Faction reputation increased. Antris empire neutral cordial. Passive buff awarded. Will of the Void, plus 10% stamina recovery, plus 5% resource gathering speed. The courtyard erupted into an absolute frenzy of quiet excitement. "We got a passive buff," a rookie scrapper cheered, immediately swinging his plasma torch with renewed vigor. 10% stamina recovery just for listening to a cutscene. This game is goated. "Look at the faction shop," another player yelled, opening their menu interface. "New blueprints just unlocked under her profile. We can build automated turrets now. We just need to hit that 10,000 material goal." I watched the metrics from the void, a profound sense of satisfaction rippling through my core. The introduction of the Empress was a massive success. The players were completely hooked. They didn't see a terrifying cosmic anomaly capable of tearing a hole in real space. They saw a high-tier faction leader offering top-tier rewards for completing their daily grind. Their collective enthusiasm, their shared determination to farm materials to impress their new Empress, poured into my system like an open torrent of liquid power. Harvesting devotional energy, plus 850 fuel. Current pool 4,700/5,000. Warning, approaching core evolution threshold. While the players threw themselves back into the resource nodes with twice the intensity as before, shouting orders, organizing salvage teams to haul the wrecked Krieg artillery back to the base, and filling the refinery hopper at a blistering pace, the Empress turned her gaze upward, staring directly through the physical clouds toward the upper atmosphere. Through her eyes, I saw what lay beyond our immediate veil. The Imperium Expeditionary Force on the ground had been wiped out, but their abrupt disappearance from the tactical grid wouldn't go unnoticed for long. Far above the toxic clouds, in the cold vacuum of the planet's orbit, a heavy Imperial scout cruiser was currently adjusting its trajectory. They had lost telemetry with their mortar teams. They had detected a sudden, massive blind spot over the northern flats that conventional augers couldn't penetrate. They were preparing to send a secondary, much larger recon force, and this time, they wouldn't just bring trench troops. They were spinning up their orbital scanners, attempting to peer through the psychic dead zone I had constructed. "Lucian," the Empress communicated back to me through our private, higher-dimensional link, her mental voice as sharp as a razor. "The flies in orbit are growing restless. They attempt to pierce the fog. Shall I collapse their vessel into a cinder?" "Not yet," I replied, my voice echoing back through the void. "If an Imperial cruiser suddenly implodes in low orbit without an explanation, the sector command will panic and deploy a full battle fleet. We are not ready for a war of attrition against an entire sector. We need them to hesitate. We need them to believe we are an ancient, dormant power from a higher reality, a sleeping giant best left undisturbed. Then we give them a demonstration," the Empress reasoned, her pupil-less eyes narrowing slightly, "a warning that defies their understanding of reality." "Exactly," I agreed. "Prepare the orbital dampener. When they attempt to scan our fortress, we will not hide. We will show them exactly what happens when the universe looks back into the void." Down in the courtyard, a massive cheer broke out among the players. A towering holographic notification burst into the air above the central structure, bathing the iron walls in a brilliant sapphire light. Mandatory goal achieved, 10,000/10,000 materials refined. Fortress tech level upgraded, Tier 2, Void Iron Age. New features unlocked. Heavy fabrication bay, automated defense grid, server cap expanded, 100/250 players. Wave 3 is spawning in, Trashcan roared, waving his hydraulic arm toward the glowing pillars of light that were already appearing in the staging area. "Get those new guys organized. We've got a heavy fabrication bay to build, and something tells me the next event is going to be massive." The Empire was growing. The players were logging in by the hundreds, eager to serve the silent queen of the Dark Flats. But as the cosmic energy within my core finally crossed the 5,000 threshold, the singularity of absence began to expand, preparing to project our first true defense against the stars. "You have reached the end of the text.